What do you say to Orthodox priests when they teach Catholics are Christian? Orthodox priests teach that Catholics are Christian. All right, so let's talk about that. Who's a Christian? That's actually what all our documentaries are about. What is a Christian or who's a Christian? So there's two ways to understand that. The strict or proper way, strictly speaking, as they say, using words properly. Christian, what does it mean? It means in the context of the church, it means to put on Christ. As the Apostle Paul, that's how he phrases it, right? All those who've been baptized into Christ have put on Christ. All right, so putting on Christ is in the mysteries of the church. So a Christian is someone who participates in the mystery of the incarnation, in the mystery of the church, in the mysteries, the sacraments of the church. Puts on Christ, in other words, becomes a little Christ through the mysteries, chrismation, communion. That's how one becomes a Christian. So the minute that you say that someone outside of that experience is a Christian, you change the meaning of the very word Christian. So the way most people use it outside of the proper, strictly speaking context of the church is they mean someone who follows Christ in a variety of ways and holds him to be God incarnate. Of course, there's people who call themselves Christians who believe he's just a teacher. They're called Arians, or they're called Jehovah's Witnesses, or they're called any number of versions of Arianism today. But if we're going to say people who have, doctrine as the church has always taught, the Trinity and Christ's divine humanity. Okay, so they follow him and they believe in him, but they're following him from a distance in the sense that they're not participating in the mysteries of the church. So the question you're asking is, are Roman Catholics is Catholicism the church? That's ultimately what you're asking me, whether you know it or not. Because if Catholicism or the Roman Catholic Church or the Latins or whatever you want to call them, there's a variety of words. We call them papal Protestants here at this channel because that's the best phrase to express what happened with the Pope in the 11th century. He became a Protestant. He protested. He walked away from the church and he did his own will. That's exactly what all the Protestants after him, imitating him, did in the Reformation. He became the first Protestant for us as Orthodox. That's how we see it. Papal Protestant. Anyway, Catholicism, is it the church? That's ultimately the question you're asking me. And if it's the church, then we have one of two possibilities. We have a split church, a divided church, right? We don't confess any longer a one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. We don't believe that. The Roman Catholics don't believe that. They believe in one church, all right? So that's not possible. The church is not split. So Catholicism can't be a part of the church, right? It can't be the split. There's two parts of the church which are split. That's not the church anymore. So how is Catholicism the church? Can Catholicism and Orthodoxy be the church at the same time? Again, that's a split church. So that doesn't seem to work. So there's various theories today in ecumenism trying to work out a solution to make it all make sense. Not just Catholicism, Orthodoxy, but even Protestantism, they're all the church. Right? So there's a variety of ecclesiologies, theories about the church that have been created. All of them are creations of men in the 20th century to try to figure it out without repentance, without return. Because, hey, Catholicism is not going to return to Orthodoxy. It's asking too much. All these Roman Catholics are not going to admit that they're wrong and that they're no longer the Church of Christ, but they're separated from the Church of Christ, and therefore they need to get up and return, because that's not going to be asked and that's not going to be responded to positively. We don't even go there, right? So now we're going to create a new answer that's never been given before. We're going to talk about the church in degrees. We're going to talk about incomplete communion. This is what Vatican II does. Vatican II talks about, well, there's a church. The core of the church is Catholicism, Roman Catholic Church, but that's not the end of the church. There's a whole spectrum of participation, from little to great participation. So Protestants are participating in the church, the Roman Catholics say in Vatican II. And there's Orthodox, they also participate in the church, even more so. They have the Eucharist. They have all these theories that they created, literally 20th century theories. Yes, there's aspects of it that are pulling from the medieval period. There might even be things they're taking from Augustine. The church, however, in council has never taught any of these theories. Doesn't exist in the fathers. There's no such thing. There's no confession of such a church. And so, again, your question is Catholicism the church? And if we're going to follow the fathers and follow what they've taught for 2,000 years and reproduce what they've taught and not something new in the 20th century, the only answer we can give is no. It's not the Church of Christ. It cannot be the Church of Christ and have heresy and be totally separated and in schism and far from communion with the church, the one holy Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church. They can't both be the church. So you can call many people who follow Christ, you can call them Christian if you want. You can use that term in that way. I could even accept that to a certain degree and say they're Christian with that meaning, that they're following after Christ, they want Christ. That's not what the church means, though, when it says Christian. That's not what the fathers mean when they say Christian. To be a Christian is not just to follow Christ. To be a Christian is to put him on and to confess him and to be united to him in the mysteries of the church. And that happens in one church and only one church that is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and that's the Orthodox Church. So those priests who say that there's a split church or there's a church that has heresy, they're teaching something new. They're innovating. They have a new vision of the church, a new version of these things. They're going along with the 20th century ideas. Or they're saying, I mean by Christian, anybody who follows after Christ and calls them and considers themselves a Christian. That also could be possible. And they could be using it improperly, the term improperly. You'd have to clarify with them. What do you mean? How are you using that term?